What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing my review for Godzilla X Kong, the new Empire's newest Playmates figure. This is the evolved Godzilla. I was gonna hold off on this one until we reviewed like Godzilla with the heat ray and some of the others, but like, I just can't wait. I just want to talk about this one. I'm excited, man. That's right, in this video we are going to be reviewing Playmates Toys' newest Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire figure. Actually, I mean, they all came out at the same time, but it's part of the newest wave of Godzilla X Kong figures, and this one is for the Godzilla, the one we have all been waiting for, the evolved Godzilla for the new movie. This is the controversial boy himself, the guy who has lit the internet on fire, and is the newest Godzilla design brought to us by Adam Wingard and artist Jared Krzyzewski, so shout out to them. Ignore that part. So shout out to them. This is also going to be a great opportunity for me to discuss a little bit about the design, because I really haven't discussed it in full yet, and so this would be a fun way to do that. Alright, this is the new figure. Getting into the unboxing here, I really like the box. I recently unboxed the Kong figure as well. I really like the art. I really like the purple, pink, and blue color scheme. I think it's a very beautiful box art. I love the renders they've picked for Godzilla and Kong, with my preference going to the Godzilla one. I think this is the best render of the new Godzilla design we have. On this side you have the same image, on this side you have just the information Godzilla, and then these pink crystals. Pink crystals line the inside of the box as well. Very cool, obviously very relevant to the new film. Those will play into the plot. On the back there you've got Godzilla blasting his new atomic breath. It's just a good way to show the figure off. You've also got this upcoming lineup of other figures, which I would love to get my hands on, but oh my gosh, I make a daily trip to Walmart, to 2 different Walmarts every single day, and I've yet to find any of these guys other than that freaking Kong that I've already unboxed. So it's very difficult to try and find these things. On the bottom you've got some legal information, and then they're telling you how to put the tail on, so there's that. And then there's just the boys sitting in the box itself. On the back of the box we have some descriptions stating Godzilla and Kong return in an all-new adventure, pitting the almighty Kong and the fearsome Godzilla against a colossal undiscovered threat hidden within our world, challenging their very existence and our own. It is fully articulated and posable. Godzilla evolved. Godzilla has evolved into an all-new form. Now faster, stronger, and more powerful, Godzilla thunders into battle with a supercharged heat ray and a city-destroying tail swipe. Well, that's pretty accurate. Yes, Godzilla certainly is faster, stronger, and depending on your opinion, better. I do gotta say though, the art on the back of the box featuring the promotional Godzilla has these beautifully painted red small eyes that look great. They look great. They look just like Godzilla in the movie. Godzilla the toy has these enormous orange, very aggressive eyes that aren't represented by the quality on the box art, so that's a little sad. All right, let's get this guy out. Alright, so here's our figure fresh out of the box. We've got the atomic breath in one piece, and then we've got Godzilla, his tail, in separate pieces. Man, I don't know how I feel about this figure. I'm very, very conflicted on it. As far as our Playmates putting the tail on test goes, this was actually one of the hardest Playmates tails to get on. That one took a little bit of effort, so that one might be one that like a kid's gonna need help with to put on. Oh, and it doesn't seem to stay on there very well. Let's try that again. Let's try and kind of force it on. It's a little better. Still might pop off occasionally. Well, the tail doesn't go in as easily or nicely as some of the other Godzillas, and it doesn't look as good once it's put in. It looks noticeable that these are 2 separate pieces clicked into each other, so that's not the best, but it is what it is. Gosh, he's so weird. Oh my god, it's so strange. This is Godzilla. Oh wow. It's so weird. Jared, what have you done? Jared's a great guy, by the way. I like him a lot, and I'm very proud of his work. I think that's so freaking cool that he got to design a Godzilla of his own, and I think it's super cool that Adam Wingard got to do his own interpretation of Godzilla. Just because they're not decisions I would make doesn't mean I don't respect the people who made them. And then here's the atomic breath piece. I really like it. It's a brand new beam. It's brand new to the Playmates sculpts. They haven't just reused a previous beam. The way that it's hooking into the mouth has this little explosion coming off. It's super cool. I like that it spits out like a spider web, and then it's just this really powerful looking beam beam, they did capture the essence of the new wavy, warpy beam that Godzilla has in the movie. It feels powerful and to the point and direct and aggressive. It's very cool. Comparing it to the blue atomic breath, which came with the previous Godzilla, this one feels very wavy, like fire, you know, it's got the very classic Godzilla atomic breath feel. This one just has a much more aggressive style to it that I really like. There's a bit of a beam battle for you. I think that's super sweet. I really like this new design. It's a much harder plastic. You cannot bend it as easily, but it's still got enough flexibility to it so you don't have to worry about breaking it. It gets really hard towards the top, but that's going to be a hard thing to break anyways. So it's not as rubbery and wavy as the 2021 Atomic Breath was, but it doesn't need to be. It looks really nice. I think this is awesome. As far as Godzilla goes, and this gives me a good place to talk about the design overall, I've seen a lot of people completely misunderstanding, thinking that I do not like Godzilla's design in the new movie, or thinking that I just hate it because it's pink. I don't know where that all started from. I don't have those issues with it. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the design, and as I've said in videos before, it's one of my least favorite Godzilla designs, but I'm not too worked up about it because Godzilla's design is going to change the next time a filmmaker gets their hands on Godzilla. If it's going to be a filmmaker that isn't Adam Wingard, or even if it is Adam Wingard, the likelihood of Godzilla's design changing for the next movie, it's pretty high. So I'm not going to get too worked up about the design, and the reasons that I don't really love it is just because I'm not into the proportions. I think the legs are awkwardly slender. I get that it's built for making Godzilla sprint, and I understand why they did it. It makes it feel like Godzilla shouldn't be able to support his weight. We've also slimmed down all the bulk from the Godzilla design. He's snatched right at the waist. It makes it look like he's wearing a corset or something, or he has tied a belt super tight around his waist to give him this hourglass figure. His chest is so puffy, but then he doesn't have the underbody to support it. I get why they wanted to do it, because they wanted to make Godzilla look more like a fighter, but then why not go with very slimmed down proportions like the Godzilla from 2004? Godzilla from Final Wars could kick the ass of like every other Godzilla. He looks powerful and fierce and fast, and he doesn't look awkward. He looks well proportioned, and I don't think this Godzilla captures that very well. This Godzilla feels strange, and if the movie's gonna play it up as like, well, he evolved so rapidly that his body hasn't settled into its new proportions quite yet, perfect. Do that, explain it that way, and I'm all on board. The head is awkwardly big, the rest of the body's awkwardly small. As far as the pink goes, I really don't know why people think that I hate it because it's pink. I think it's distracting, and I would take it back to blue if I was doing a more serious Godzilla movie, but as far as like the whimsical Godzilla X Kong The New Empire goes, I really have zero issues with it being pink at all. I think that it could be fine. Personally, I think it'd be coolest if the dorsal spines were red, and then when they charged up, they became pink. That'd be really interesting and cool. Or even if they were kind of translucent-y white until they charged up, which is kind of what the trailer makes it look like. That'd be really neat. Other than that, the pink is just a little distracting is all. I don't have an issue with it just because it's pink. I just think it's such a bright and aggressive color. It's a little distracting. I do like the explanation though that it's because it's so energetic. It's the highest form of energy or whatever, you know, the wavelength wise. So I think that's a cool explanation. And then as for the tail, I think it's rad as hell. These spikes on the tip of the tail I don't think are necessary. They're very Stegosaurus. I think Stegosaurus have these kind of spikes on the tail. I don't think they're necessary at all. I think that they could have just made Godzilla's tail sharper. That'd be cool, but it's still kind of rad nonetheless. I'm really into the elbow spikes. Those are super cool. Those are something that I've loved. I loved when -1 did it, and I've wanted Godzilla Designs to do it for a while. And then on the real design, not highlighted on the Playmates figure, is Godzilla's new chin beard. So cool. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of things that I really like about this Godzilla design, and I'm excited to see it in action. I just preferred the 2019 Godzilla design. Sad to see that go. It was one of my favorites, so seeing that go is a big adjustment, and then seeing it turn into something so aggressive like this, it's just a big leap. And for me, it's not my favorite design, but that doesn't mean that I hate it. Okay, anyways, as far as the figure goes, I actually think it's really solid. Yes, there is still the Playmates sculpting details that are always throwing me off, where the tail piece does not mesh well with the hard plastics. They've gone back to the hard plastics for this Godzilla. Like, this is another one of the ones that feels like it will explode on impact, so watch out for that. It's got the classic Playmates unrendered body. This one is particularly a throwback to their unrendered days, where it just doesn't look great. Very smooth in certain areas. I like that they've gotten the shape of Godzilla right, but the chest is still just not well detailed. The legs look really nice. I think they've done a good job with the legs. There's lots of good texturing in the legs, and it goes into the feet, which look really nice. On the insides of the legs, they're again going back to the smoothness. And I think that's so that the legs can move a bit bit easier, but the legs aren't always rubbing up against other stuff, so there's no need to fully unrender the bottom parts of the legs. I think that's just lazy. The tailpiece, I can't tell if it's well done or not because the paint isn't executed very well, but I think the sculpt of the tailpiece is pretty good. It's got a good texture on the bottom of it. The top of it looks pretty solid. They've done a good job with the spines, and the tip of the tail with the big stegosaur spines look pretty good. Getting into Godzilla's dorsal plates, they actually look really fantastic. There's a lot of great texturing and detail within them, and I know that these are the translucent rubber pieces, but I've always kind of felt like Playmates excels with the translucent rubber pieces. Also, making them translucent, so freaking cool. Love that. Getting onto the head, it's just too chunky. Is that a design flaw for the Godzilla, or is his head really that large in the movie? But it looks weird. If it is for the movie, then I'll give the Playmates figure a pass. If it's not in the movie, looks awkward. The most awkward part about it is just the jump from the translucent spines to the painted spines on the head, and they don't look great. The eyes are very large, but they weren't sculpted to be that way, so I can't really give that a fault. The rest of the headpiece, however, looks pretty solid. I really like the ridgeline running across the neck. I really like the front of the neck with the gills. I think the face overall looks pretty good. It looks a little derpy from head on, but on the whole, it's pretty solid. As far as how the whole thing's put together, I think this is one of Playmate's cooler ones. The arms look really awesome. The fingers look great. I really like the new hand poses. They've done a good job adding in Godzilla's new elbow spikes. I don't really have that big of an issue with the fact that one of Godzilla's arms is bent in while the other one's reaching out. And having Godzilla with the stepped forward pose is actually one of the less aggressive stepped forward poses that Playmates has done with their toys, so I'm gonna give that a pass as well. Decent sculpt overall, but could have used some more texture. As far as the paint job goes, I think it looks pretty nice. Godzilla's got a very dull bluish gray color. I think that looks really solid. Getting into the chest region, it's painted nice and brown. That's great. I really like that they've done that. The teeth look really solid with them being white. The tongue on the inside of the mouth is nice and pink and it looks good. The eyes, although they don't look as good as the ones on the box, actually don't look bad, and at least they're looking the right direction. They're orange instead of red, which they would have been cooler if they were red, but at least they're painted decent. The spines on the head look fine. They just don't contrast well with the spines on the back, which look incredible. I really like the color red they've chosen here, even though in the movie, again, they're pink. I think maybe they were just worried that pink toys aren't going to sell as well as red toys, because obviously Godzilla's a toy bought mostly by boys, so maybe that's a bit of the thinking going into it. They've painted the fingernails, they've painted the toenails, and I gotta give them a shout out for that. Where they've fallen apart, I think, is the tail, where it kind of looks like they've splashed Godzilla with some Cheeto dust. Going back to our old Jack Pacific days, like, they just haven't done a great job with the tail. They've just made the whole thing kind of pinkish, and it bleeds into the blue on the bottom, and it just isn't executed very well. It's clear that they didn't want to take the time to paint the spines individually, and so they didn't. I would love it if they released a variant of this figure that wasn't an Atomic Breath version, one where Godzilla's spines were painted instead of being translucent, and one where the spines on the tail were more of the bluish color. I think that'd look pretty solid. One area that I'm sad that they didn't paint is these elbow spikes in the movie are pink, and I think it's a big disappointment that they're not pink on this figure. In fact, they should have been the translucent pink like the spines. That would have been really cool. But they're not. They're not well rendered, and they're also not painted, so they blend into the body and kind of get lost in the sauce here. You can barely tell they're there when his arm's tucked in. That's very disappointing. As far as articulation goes, you've got one piece for the leg, two piece for the other leg, one piece for the foot, two piece for the other foot. That is a total for 4 for the legs, 5 with the tail, 6 with the arm, 7 with the other arm, 8 with the neck, which barely moves. Oh man, that feels like I'm gonna break him if I turn his neck. Yikes, not great there. And then 9 with the mouth that, again, just kind of barely opens. Pretty solid articulation range for a Godzilla figure from Playmates, but they could have gone further in some areas. I'm okay that they didn't add the elbow joints, by the way, because the arms are rubbery, which means you can kind of get them into slapping motions, you can bend them in, you can tuck them in, you can get Godzilla to do his punches, his grabs, his slashes, his claws, and then the tail's obviously rubbery enough to where you can just wave it around, pop it off as it seems to pop off a lot, but you can still get him to do some fun fights with your other action figures, and that's neat. The Atomic Breath looks fantastic in his mouth. It locks into a peg hole in the top of his mouth and makes it very sturdy. It's not coming out at all. That's great, and it also spills out of the sides of his mouth, which is wonderful. That looks so cool. I'm very into that. Oh, that's awesome. As far as our figure comparisons go, here's Playmates Godzilla 2021 with the Atomic Breath. Blasting the new Godzilla. It's a shame to see the design change, but I get it, because this is a cool action figure. It looks cool, it looks aggressive as a toy. It's pretty neat. This Godzilla, certainly in comparison, doesn't look like he could kick as much ass, so I get why they made the changes they made. They both actually look really cool together. I mean, this is a cool pairing right here, both with the translucent spines, both with the Atomic Breath. That looks pretty awesome, so shout out Playmates for that. I'm glad that we have both of them. Also, I just realized it's kind of funny that both of the tails arc in the same direction. They have have made some notable improvements from the Godzilla 2021 to this one, which is mostly just the soft rubbery tail, the soft rubbery arms, and the atomic breath being a little cooler with it spilling out across the sides of his cheek as well. That's really neat. Also, they got rid of the battle damage, which is great. Here's Godzilla standing off against his rival Mechagodzilla, also designed by Jared Krzyzewski. I wonder which atomic breath would win this fight. As many have noted, Godzilla's new design and proportions actually reflects Mechagodzilla better than the previous Godzilla's design, with Godzilla now featuring longer arms and having bigger legs meant for sprinting. So that's a cool mashup. You could smash into each other, have a good Krzyzewski-Wingard battle. Neat stuff, and they look pretty cool next to each other as well. Finally, here we have Godzilla's new frenemy, Kong, standing off against Godzilla. The two of them look very cool next to each other. Both of them look very gimmicky, and you can tell that a big driving factor of this movie was the desire to sell toys. And hey, as far as the execution goes, at least the toys are kick-ass next to each other. Kong, unfortunately, is not going to stand much of a chance in this battle against a hyper-evolved Godzilla. Poor guy. Gonna get his chest scratched up again. But as always, I just kind of gotta give the win to my power-gloved boy. They look awesome next to each other. I think that's cool. And I'm glad Playmates took the steps to make these figures and to make them much better than they made the original Godzilla vs. Kong releases. I got this Godzilla for about $10 at Walmart, and overall I'd say the new evolved Godzilla from Playmates is a solid 7 out of 10. I think that they've done some really cool stuff with it, including the dorsal spines, including the atomic breath, and the overall capturing of the design, but I do think they could have taken the sculpt a bit further, made it a bit more deep, made it a bit richer. It just harkens back to the days of Playmates figures being generally unrendered and shows that time and time again Playmates has captured Kong much better than they've captured Godzilla, despite the Godzilla toys just looking cooler because hey, Godzilla just looks cooler. Alright, that'll do it for this one, guys. I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below. It is through the support of the patrons over on Patreon that make it possible for me to continue to make videos like this for you guys, so please consider checking it out. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.